Before being traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder, Chris Paul actually wanted to go to the Bucks. Who would have actually thought that was the case, with a lot of people saying that there was going to be the Miami Heat and that was going to be wanting Chris Paul and Chris Paul wanting them. How's it going, everyone? Today I'm going to be talking about some more NBA news, and today's video we actually have a Chris Paul video, which I haven't really talked about him in a while, if not actually ever, on this channel, but there is actually pretty much confirmed now that before being dealt to the OKC, Chris Paul wanted to be traded to the Bucks. Per Ryan Russillo, I think I said his name right. Pretty much, I believe this 100%, and I think it could still eventually happen if you guys do think about it. Obviously, there's a lot of people who don't really rate Eric Bledsoe at all, and a lot of people thinking they need to upgrade at point guard. In my opinion, they should have kept Malcolm Brogdon even to play at shooting guard, even though I know there was some cap restrictions. A lot of people were even saying with a lot of people's performances in the playoffs, there was a couple of players that did stand out. Obviously, George Hill at point guard stood out quite a bit, with some people even saying George Hill was actually better in the playoffs than what Eric Bledsoe was, and they could have got him on a cheaper price and then kept obviously Malcolm Brogdon, and then obviously had a duo of pretty much George Hill and Malcolm Brogdon, rather than just having Eric Bledsoe and George Hill off the bench. A lot of people thought that would have been the right deal, or what they could have done was potentially signed Malcolm Brogdon and then potentially obviously signed as well George Hill. Obviously, a lot of people say that could have been the better solution, but in my opinion, even though Chris Paul is playing extremely bad at OKC right now, it's clear he doesn't want to be there, but even him playing super bad, I'm pretty sure his stats are still better than Eric Bledsoe. And yeah, I know there's a lot of salary cap situations with Chris Paul and all of this stuff, but obviously Eric Bledsoe is on a pretty big contract himself, and I think that if the Bucks really want to beat the Philadelphia 76ers, they need to go all out and try and get another really good player. I don't know if Chris Paul is necessarily the one, but I think it could definitely be in mind. Obviously, his contract is pretty big, so is Eric Bledsoe's, but Eric Bledsoe's contract is literally pretty much tiny compared to obviously Chris Paul's big contract, which is like $40 million on his last year or something like that, which is absolutely crazy in my opinion. But yeah, it looks like I'm pretty sure Eric Bledsoe's on a 4-year, $70 million, so make of that what you want. But if they were to do a Chris Paul trade, they would, definitely have to put Eric Bledsoe in it. In my opinion, I don't think they should. I mean, they didn't back then, so obviously we all know that Chris Paul probably still wants to go to the Bucks right now. It's clear his intentions that he doesn't want to stay in OKC. He wants to play for a contender, and yeah, I do think the Bucks would be a good team, but I just don't think a team like them would really take on what's pretty much left over of Chris Paul, especially considering the chemistry with Eric Bledsoe they already have with the Milwaukee Bucks. And then, yeah, obviously Chris Paul's contract is just way too big, and I doubt they're really going to want to pay for that at all, in my opinion. So I don't really necessarily think they should go ahead with it, but yeah, I'm still on, the thing that Chris Paul, if the Miami Heat are desperate for a point guard and still want to get rid of Gore and Dragic, I think obviously getting potentially Chris Paul wouldn't be that bad. They could also trade a couple bad contracts here and there, and he pretty much traded away Dragic, obviously, and a couple of bad contracts for Chris Paul. So, in my opinion, that's really not that bad, and they still have a couple of really bad contracts, and Dion Waiters, there's a lot of problems with him at the moment, so I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to look for a move for him. Potentially to OKC could be the move if they decide to potentially do something like that. Obviously, if you were the Milwaukee Bucks, you could also look at potentially bringing in Danilo Gallinari. That could also be another way, because he is a really good player at spreading the floor, obviously, and they could potentially roll out with a lineup of Chris Paul, Chris Middleton, Giannis, and then obviously Gallinari, and then potentially Brook Lopez at center. That's some pretty good three-point shooting, if you ask me, and the floor is pretty spaced out. The only problem is obviously salary cap restrictions, and if they want to get Gallinari as well, they would also might have to include George Hill in a trade. And I never thought I would say this, but George Hill has actually been balling since his time at the Bucks, so I don't think they would really want to do that. He's actually pretty valuable to them at the moment, so I couldn't really see that happening. But there's going to obviously be a couple other players that would potentially have to be in there, which I'll get to them later. But again, I think that the Bucks should not really do this trade. I just don't think it would be a good move for them. They obviously need to win a championship eventually, but I don't really know if getting Chris Paul is really going to do that and get you any closer. Even if they do get Chris Paul, you could still argue the fact that maybe even the Sixers are still better than them. In fact, I probably would say they might actually be still better than them. They do have a couple players who are on, I guess, biggish contracts, but the salary cap situation at the Bucks is actually pretty clean and looks kind of nice. Obviously, Ilyasova is on $7 million. George Hill will be making $10 million eventually. Brook Lopez on $13 million. They're all kind of friendly contracts, in my opinion, so I don't really know what would have to happen to get Chris Paul over the line. That's just pretty much it. I don't think they should. They're in a pretty good spot at the moment, and I think they should just trade for a player here and there. Obviously, losing Malcolm Brogdon was extremely tough, and yeah, they definitely do need another player, in my opinion, to come to the team. If I was a team trading for Chris Paul, I only think there's a couple of options still left. Obviously, Washington Wizards could still be one if they want to try and get rid of John Wall's bad contract and do kind of a swap. If that could potentially happen, if OKC were interested in that. I guess the Miami Heat could try and give away some of their bad contracts, because I know they still got a couple in a deal to get Chris Paul. I mean, it would be friendly for both teams, obviously. And then, yeah, I'm sure there's a couple other teams here and there that might want to trade for him, such as Minnesota might have their eyes on Gallinari as well. That's just potentially how I see it. But if I was the Milwaukee Bucks, I would not trade for Chris Paul. But yeah, it does look like obviously Chris Paul did actually try and get traded to the Milwaukee Bucks, and he probably still wants to be traded there, but again, I just don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest NBA and sports content. Don't forget to comment in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts and opinions on this? Do you guys think it'd be a good idea for the Bucks to get Chris Paul, or do you guys think they should not trade for him? And what are your thoughts and opinions on Chris Paul actually wanting to be traded to the Bucks? I definitely would really like to know your thoughts and opinions down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/vlog channels. Links for them are in the description down below. So make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.